I unfortunately sat here during both courses of it, and I think I was partially responsible for it. I have no problem going back to full day. I don't know whether it was really beneficial to go to the half days or not. So I leave this in the hand of professional educators.
My question's on the 17-18 calendar. It became a desire of the board to lump the vacation with Good Friday in April, because shutting the building down for a long weekend and then repowering the building and then shutting the buildings back down for vacation was costly. So the decision to do that was based on, once the building gets shut down, leave it down. I'm just curious, on the 17-18 calendar year, we went away from that.
I believe that is because of the risk.
Okay.
I'll double check that, but I believe that was because of the risk picking the April vacation. And I'd also have to look at our board policy, because our board policy is fairly specific about when April vacation has to happen. So I'll double check that.
Jeff? Ellen? Nothing. Jim? Bill? Nothing. Andrew? Anyone have any secondary comment on the calendar? Okay. Director of Special Education. Comment from budget.
Personnel, who I'll throw under the bus part of this presentation, moved to the budget committee a recommendation to set a pay scale amount that is higher than the current position. And they wanted to set a pay scale between 150 and...
The low end was 137, the high end being 150. So it gave more flexibility to the administration in looking at candidates. It is also a recommendation to post the position as a full position, not an interim, acting, intermediate, or any combination thereof. So we are looking for a Director of Special Education, starting for July 1, 2016. And I believe the administration, Director of Student Services. Unfortunately, the name changes year to year. The administration, I believe, has some information with regard to the fact that there is over 11 people currently looking for the same position in the state of Connecticut, and the low end of their scale is 137, 138 range. So, and currently that is paying 124, which is why we lost our current one. Among the fact they were able to get the district to pay $11,000 more and take less than half the case.
No, I mean, we put the recommendation in, as Dan said, because the last time we posted it as an interim, we got not one applicant. So people are not looking for interim because there are so many out there. They don't have to settle for an interim. They can go for what is a more secure position. We do desperately need to get qualified staff into this position. We know that we need to look at, I mean, as was stated earlier, Ms. LaChance really was starting to develop a vision for how we could better service our students, how we could keep more of our kids in-house, and without having someone who's got that expertise and has that time and is of quality, we're never going to be able to make any moves forward in our special education services. So one of the reasons we brought it to personnel is because it affects the 16-17 budget, and so we need to move forward before that budget is, actually the whole budget comes to before the board for approval. So this is something we need a commitment that we're going to make this a permanent change so we can start looking now. We can't wait until June when the budget is final and start looking for an interim director, a new director for the 1st of July. We need to get somebody now.
Andrew?
I'm not necessarily opposed to the ceiling, but I don't like the fact that we want to put a floor in at 137. I understand why you'd want to do that, but I don't know why you would want to tie our opportunities to get someone in at a price less than 137. Second thing is, I'm not really positive just what are the special degrees, qualifications, Director of Student Services, actually.
Well, Andrew, they're gonna take notes, and after everyone goes, they'll respond.
Well,
So if you just say whatever your comments are, and they can
Okay.
collect them all.
And it ties in with something that I talked about for 9 years, which is, and I know that we have very nice people sitting at the table there, but it's always something that I'm always looking to do, which is to potentially eliminate positions at Midgeon Avenue. And I would like to know why the Director of Student Services couldn't be fulfilled by maybe the Assistant Superintendent's position. Maybe the Assistant Superintendent would have those types of skills that are needed to be the Director of Student Services, and we as a district just need to figure ways to reduce our expenditures. And I understand you don't want to, by saving a few bucks, cost yourself more money by mismanagement, but it's just ideas that I pop forth every year, and see if we get some answers.
Bill, do you have anything?
No.
Jim?
No, no, answer to the committee.
Ellen? No. Liz?
No, just, I support the general idea of increasing the salary. I know it's counterintuitive, especially since we all know we need to find ways to cut back. But unfortunately, with a position like this, for us to be able to attract a qualified candidate who can move us in the right direction, I think we're gonna have to do that.
We, in going back over years, the special education department and the Midgeon Avenue staff has been decimated by budget cut after budget cut after budget cut. The problem is, you're penny wise, dollar foolish. We need to look at the fact that that is the department that is growing at $2 to $4 million a year, and all we're doing is running behind trying to play catch up. And we need to find someone qualified to break down the programs we have, because this is the one spot in education right now that you make the investment, you will reap the rewards. Because if we can figure out a way to stop the out-of-control special education budget, which is not our fault, it's mandate and needs, but if we can come up with a better widget, this is the spot to do it.
Dan?
I'm pretty sure everything's already been said. I mean, we already know this is our largest single expense item, special ed. We already know this is the area where we need the best talent, and there's only so much we can do. Hopefully, the individuals that will be coming forward to us looking will have wonderful creative ideas.
And I'd also like to float the idea that if you have people with special degrees and special qualifications and the ability to save us money in this budget item that is our single largest, this is where you may run into a fact where you can pay somebody more. I can see a very highly qualified person who can save us potentially hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million down the road, can get paid more than the CEO, the superintendent of schools. This is where the money gets saved. That this person, what I'm saying is that you don't necessarily have to raise the other pay scales to match an increased cost in this one.
That was only my comment, was that with having that at 150, what bottom number are we then looking at for the superintendent? That would be my only concern, but I wholeheartedly agree that we need someone qualified in there that can look at our special education program. But I do think that it does bump up what salary we're looking at for superintendent, because I don't believe that you can have someone work underneath someone that makes more than that. I just don't think that's secondary.
Okay, I've been here 9 years, and just as that gentleman said, we've had a great migration of people coming and going throughout the district. And what I always love is that in that time period, every superintendent has spoken highly of the person they had in that job. And it's always the same. We need someone to move us in the right direction, and these are the people that are licensed by the state. These are the people that are promoted throughout the educational community. And I just have to question whether or not what we idealistically think this person in this position is actually going to do actually exists. Because I think it's a culture, it's their culture, and I don't think the general public, nor necessarily lay people as board people, actually understand the culture of special ed and what these people do. I think it's divergent, and it's a divergent culture of what's trying to be accomplished. And until, and again, Ken is going to try to move in that direction with his subgroup there to analyze what the state is actually doing to communities in the state of Connecticut. But I don't think that necessarily that person with that expertise is going to make anyone at the end of the day very happy, because I don't think that person exists up there. I think it's the reason why it's probably the biggest plague on this state, which is how special ed is funded, what the services are provided, the lack of accountability. No one actually, and you could say, well, everyone has a process of appeal, but as a board member for 9 years, I've never known what anyone has actually done. It's never come before the board. I never see anyone come before the board and say that child has benefited or not benefited. So it's just one of those areas that seems to not be discussed as every other aspect of education in the state. So that's all I have to say.
Anyone else have a second? Yeah.
I would just echo what Mr. Vergara said, and to your point, in a lot of other industries, the person in charge does make the most money. Operators make more than laborers, than foremen, than superintendents, because the operators get overtime, superintendents don't. It's very common in my industry for the person that's physically running the job to maybe be as far as 100 on the pay scale. It's based on skill level. It's based on what you do. You know, if you're a very gifted crane operator, they come with a lot of liability and a lot of licenses, and they make big money. The superintendent that just says, hey, hire that crane, doesn't necessarily make more than the crane operator. So I think that it is a culture in education and in several other fields that there has to be this pecking order. But there doesn't have to be. If you're the talented person and we need that person to save us money, then that's where they go. And the supervisor is there to supervise, not run the special ed department, but to just oversee the person that is running that department. So I don't think it's an uncommon thing.
And I did forget to make one comment from someone who, when they heard about this, who's kept me on the straight and narrow for 38 years. And her input was, when you hire somebody like this, have a criteria. Have a criteria. Will we have fewer outplacements, or can they reduce the number of outplacements from, you know, a running average of the last 5 years? That's part of their evaluation process. So to answer your question, you know, or your comment, Andrew, is that we need to build an evaluation system so that they're held to a standard and they know that coming in.
Anyone else? Did you want to respond to Andrew's question or get back to the board with that
No,
information?
sure, I can answer those. I mean, as far as the qualifications of degrees and certification, one thing that we want to have obviously is someone who is well-versed in special education. So their first certification should be in the area of special education. We have tried to do this position with someone whose certification was in guidance. That doesn't work. The laws, the requirements, and the statutory requirements for providing special education, for running proper PPTs, for ensuring that people are trained in the things that they need to be trained in. So that all those things require someone who has a special education certification rather than guidance. So I've seen it done that way. It simply doesn't work. The other certification they need is the O92, which is the administrative, so that they can properly evaluate the staff. Because in the state of Connecticut, you can't evaluate staff members if you don't have the O92 administrator certification. So those are the degrees and the certifications that I would be looking for in someone who is going to be in charge of special education. as far as eliminating positions at Midgeon Avenue and having those duties fulfilled by an assistant superintendent. As a former business person, I absolutely understand trying to look at scaling back and not having so many chiefs that, you don't have. We used to have 5 administrators in the special education department when we had less than 300 students. We now have 800 students plus, and we have 1 administrator. So that one of the places that you're going to actually see savings in special education is in consolidation of programs, is in the ability of the supervisor to provide oversight and analysis and meet with the special education coordinators, to be able to be out in the field and see how things are working, to evaluate programs and make recommendations for changes, to be at contentious PPTs, because there are contentious PPTs. And I understand that. I mean, as a parent who was fortunate enough to have a child who was completely and absolutely perfectly normal and no problems functioning and no struggles with learning, I can only imagine what it's like to be a parent of a child who has special needs and have to fight all the time to protect and provide for that child, not only in their everyday life but in school. So we need someone who understands that, so I'm looking for someone who also has the compassion to be able to be an effective director, because you have to consider the parents, you have to consider the child. We have statutory requirements. We need to be able to do all of that, and that takes a very special individual. As far as the assistant superintendent, one of the things that's been one of our woes this year that I know that Ms. Lebomsky would definitely chime in on is one of the things we need to provide for our regular education students and all of our students is curriculum, viable, rigorous curriculum that is aligned with standards, that allows our students to leave school, college, and career ready, to have their choices open to them when they leave us, and without the ability for the assistant superintendent to effectively evaluate and supervise the writing of curriculum and the development of instructional strategies, and to oversee the assessment and to oversee the analysis of that data, and to make recommendations for changes in curriculum and instruction based on that information, then we don't move our regular education students forward. We don't identify those students who may need additional assistance, and they become special education students, not because they perhaps have a necessary disability, but because they don't get the assistance that they might need because they struggle a bit to learn. So that we see an over-identification of special education when we don't have appropriate interventions in place, and that's the job of the assistant superintendent. So I do understand, and I see where, I'm going to use the term layperson, if you will, who's not involved in education, would see this differently. And just as far as the evaluation process, I would just put out there that we definitely would be looking at how we are going to evaluate. We do that as part of the goal setting, as part of TVAL for our administrators as well. And I would just ask that the board be very careful as far as how far you want to go into setting the goals and an evaluative process for individual employees. I mean, I think that might be something you don't necessarily need to get with. I mean, you've got things that you are looking for, you have goals and set board goals. Certainly, we would want to set individual TVAL goals that are in keeping with the board goals and the district improvement plan as we develop it. But I would be very cautious about having the board set individual goals for the employees. I think that's a line we really don't want to necessarily step over, because that becomes evaluative, and that's my purview. So I just would be very careful about how far into those goals we get. So just to kind of wrap it up, I just feel that one of the problems that we have, and that is problematic, is simply not having the right people in place with enough consistency to really be able to do a full job of analysis and making sure that we're properly managing the operation. As I said before, it's not exactly like business. We have a lot of other things that we have to consider, and we do have to have the ability to attract quality people who have the qualifications that we're looking for, and beyond that, to be able to provide sufficient support for our programs and our kids that people want to stay. Frustrated people who are trying their best to help kids and not being able to do so don't stay. And I would use Ms. LaChance's opportunity as she was and is phenomenal. She has incredible energy, incredible drive, and a passion for kids that I haven't seen in a very long time, and we lost her. We lost her because it's just, well, the job we have set up right now is an impossible job. It's impossible. You cannot service 800 kids with all the diverse needs of this district with one person. You just can't. I mean, it's not, I mean, we can, but we're looking along and we're identifying more and more kids all the time, and that speaks to the issue brought up on this side of the table, that if we want to, I mean, I'm basically, if we were to have been able to keep Ms. LaChance, and if we had some assistant director who could actually help her out with getting the things done, I believe absolutely that the additional cost for the director and the assistant would be covered if we didn't outplace 3 children. That's pretty much all it would take to cover an assistant director, and the increase is not outplacing 3 children.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that another observation over time has been that you would think that the people at Midgeon Avenue, all of them, would be somewhat Renaissance in nature, in the sense that they wouldn't just have one limited expertise or 2 limited expertise. They would know everything that goes on in the school district, would be able to cover for everyone in any position in the school district. And the specialization in some regards is positive, but when we're talking about the top administrators in the district, I think they should all be interchangeable. I don't see that in the district. I advocated for that really for 9 years, and how I thought we should have proceeded throughout time with how we vented not only our superintendent, but equally our assistant superintendent, and down the
Andrew,
line.
can we just stick to this position?
It is, because it's the point of, we should be trying to, instead of thinking in terms of this one person who has one specialization, I think we should be able to say anyone that we hire at Midgeon Avenue should be able to accomplish this job and and maybe another function that we now have separatized.
I don't have anything else to say. A new field trip form, I believe that's supposed to say. Oh, it's not
No, there's no.
No.
Those are
That's
The new field trip was the one,
There's one still in the packet, new field trip.
Okay.
To,
right,
yeah, it's in New York.
For the
Statutory.
world language one, right?
right.
Right. That was the original.
Yes.
The original.
Okay, the last field trip is a field trip for the French and Italian classes. It's 1 day to Ellis Island. It's going to be covered with their student activity forms, and they are going to be doing, their educational objective is they're looking at immigration. They're going to Ellis Island. They are also going to, students are going to be searching the Ellis Island registry to see if they have friends, parents, and relatives who have entered the U.S. through Ellis Island. And the French students, in addition, are going to be learning about the history of the Statue of Liberty itself, which was a gift from France. There is no cost to the district for the field trip.
Dan?
On the form, this is a form question. On the funding source, your choices are entirely by student fundraising, but it's a partial student, partial fundraising. I think that the form needs to be just student fundraising, and if you check multiple boxes, it's coming from multiple. It just says it's entirely by the students, but then it's also fundraising, and how can you do both?
Okay.
That's all. Other than that, field trip sounds great.
Okay. Yes.
Policy addresses that the form can be adjusted and changed at any time.
Can't go meeting without saying something.
I know.
Have
Bill?
policies that you do.
Andrew? The only thing I have is I think it's great that even though the budget's frozen, that the kids are getting all these opportunities, that the people in the building are making it work, so appreciate that. Employment checks policy 4006.
This is a policy we didn't have, felt that we needed, it came from Shipman. We talked about it at length. The one concern of ours was that the fingerprint and the background check did not come back. We felt was too long to come back because the teacher or the employee would be already in the classroom. So then researching other districts, it's just the way it is. And there's nothing that can be done about it. So we're bringing this policy forward so that we have it and practices it.
Andrew? Bill? Jim? Ellen? Ken?
Unfortunately, yes. The title of it, employment checks, leads me to believe it's their paycheck. Wouldn't it be employment background check or pre-employment check, or just, if you were skimming through you would think that maybe that's how you get paid. Is it a direct deposit policy? Is it, what is it? So I just found the title to be misleading. Other than that, I think the policies are fabulous. Wonderfully done.
Dan?
Sat through it in policy. The only thing we were able to find is there is a company that'll come out and get more than, I believe it's 15 people to be fingerprinted at a time. So instead of having everybody waiting up at Education Connection to be fingerprinted at the start of the school year, we might be able to get things done slightly faster by having the company come out and do both days.
Good.
Anything else? Moving right along. New course adoption policy 5032.
This was also discussed at length, and with the input from the superintendent, we just changed the time of the year that new courses can be adopted and brought forth to make it more usable for all involved, as well as the process, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing.
Wow.
No
Jeff?
way.
No.
Ellen?
I'm good.
Jim?
I'm good, I was there.
Bill? Andrew? Bill? Okay, update on interim superintendent. So we originally had written a letter to the state requesting a one-year extension. That request was originally denied and at this point is under appeal, but we have not heard a final decision yet. The basis of our appeal is due to the new legislation to get another interim in. Basically, anyone that's retired in the state of Connecticut can only work 45% of the time. We would have a part-time person, basically, that would be able to work either 2.5 days a week, or they'd only be able to work for 3 months. And we're basically waiting for an additional response from the state. Andrew?
I clearly oppose your appealing of this process. I feel that when you appeal a process, the behavior of the board should have had some type of equity, some type of merit to why the hardship is taking place. This board put this district in this position, into this position as of today because of basically the board not going along, not following up on what it had vented, what it had decided to do when we hired the interim superintendent back in August. We were supposed to have a process in place that was going to take place once the new board members came on. They were elected in November. The board was negligent in acting. I understand what Ken had said. I don't feel that this hardship was anything other than the board's doing, and I would hope that the state Department of Education and the appeal process will deny your appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Bill?
Nothing.
Jim?
I'm going to go reverse it, Andrew. Hopefully we do get these appealed, because we do need the time to vet the appropriate person.
Ellen?
Nothing.
Jeff?
I supported the appeal process when, the extension process when we decided that, and I support the appeal as well. I think that the best thing for us to continue on the positive path we're on would be to be able to keep the leadership that we have in place right now for another year. So I continue to be hopeful that works out.
Ken?
Just wondering if we have developed a parachute plan,
We have,
or what, if we, you don't have to explain it, I just want to make sure we have something in place.
Dan?
I was actually going to ask that question, if there was a plan B, just in case.
I'll echo that. It's water, I mean, it was a 5-4 vote, it was close, it is what it is. But yeah, the backup plan is what I'm interested in.
The 45% rule puts us in a very bad position, number one. Our alternative to that is to hire a retired superintendent out of Massachusetts or one of our surrounding towns that has states that has dual certification, which allow them to come right in and they could work full-time. I'm gonna state, I think, as people may not like the dollar amounts that are in this budget, I think that the current people that we have in place have literally done 3 years of work in 6 months. And I think that to upset the cart right now to bring someone else in is detrimental to 4,800 kids and every staff member, and I stand behind that. I think it's a bad move on our part. And we do not want to rush into another superintendent. We don't have the money to pay them this year. We don't have the money to look for them. And I don't think we want to be in the same position in 2 years looking for another superintendent. We need to get a community involvement, we need to look, and we can't settle for someone, so we need a plan in place. And I stand behind that, and if you want to throw stones at me, I'm happy to take that, but I am looking at what I believe to be in the best interest of the district right now. Any secondary comments?
They said enough.
Yes, moving along.
So the backup plan is that if they eventually deny us, then we'll go out and we'll,
We'll have to do the whole process.
well,
Get an intern in. We can't get a superintendent.
so we'll get an interim, but we'll get someone from another state that can come in.
Or there's no possible way we could have a part-time superintendent. And the board will decide that. If this appeal is denied, we'll have to reconvene and make that decision if we want a part-time person or we want to look in surrounding states. There's a lot of people looking, so there's certainly not a shortage. It's not that we're not going to get someone. It's just another big upheaval for our staff.
And if we did the 45 days,
It's 45%. The whole
if we did
theory of
the
the
3 months,
statute is
can we
they
bring,
can't double dip.
can we bring someone back up that was previously in the interim?
If they're collecting retirement in Connecticut, it's to avoid double dipping, so they can't then work in retirement and collect more than 45%.
Okay.
So
I was
it's
wondering,
limiting to
game
that
system,
school year,
in some
basically.
other capacity.
Right, so in that, I think, and we'll talk about it again, but the
Okay.
original direction and the reason I'm appealing it is the direction that the board wanted to go in, is that I don't believe it's in the best interest to have someone here part-time or moving people every 3 months. Andrew?
To go farther though, I'm not positive when the board made a decision that if the interim position, your appeal is denied, why we can't still at this point seek a full-time superintendent.
How are we gonna pay for it?
Whether or not, that's a secondary issue. The
Yeah.
issue, I mean,
People are either
the
gonna-
state of Connecticut does not dictate that you only have a full-time superintendent upon the local board's feeling that they can or cannot pay for a full-time superintendent. The state of.
Andrew, were you listening to what the issue is of why we need to get approval from the state?
Is why?
Of why we're getting?
Yeah, I heard what you said.
But do you understand why we even went through the approval?
Well, that's your opinion of why you went through the approval process,
Can I make a
the
point of
appeal
order?
process.
But
We're gonna have this discussion if it's denied. Why don't we have it then?
No, because you're the one who brought up the issue of the backup plan. And the backup plan.
The backup plan is that it's gonna come before us.
No, she said the backup plan would be to go forward again with an interim, seeking another interim superintendent.
Actually,
And I'll follow up with that, Andrew. If you can find the money for us to do a search, and you're comfortable, and this whole board is comfortable with us rushing in and bringing someone in here July 1, whether it's the right person or not, to say we can have a permanent superintendent, this board will decide that. 10 of us. 10 of us.
And can I just ask you why it always has to be phrased the way you phrase it, which is with the innuendo that I would be in any way stating that if we can't find a qualified superintendent, we would just hire one anyway.
Well, because you're saying that you don't want
You
an
do
interim,
this,
you
you
want a
do the
permanent
search.
person.
If you can't find one, then you actually have a valid reason to appeal the State Department of Education's decision. But if you don't act in good faith,
We're
you
not
actually,
appealing.
you
Andrew,
didn't
this
act
is
in
what I'm
good
saying.
faith.
This is the point of what, Andrew, if you were at the same meeting that we were all at,
Yeah.
we are not appealing the right to have a second-year interim. We're appealing the fact that there is not an 093 certification and the extension of a year.
Right.
Right.
But what's,
Does anyone have anything else? Moving on. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss administrator's contract 2016 through 2019.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion?
Are you inviting anyone in?
Sorry, letting you go.
Under duty, you guys.
All those in favor? Unanimous.